Welcome to the Lowcountry Revolutionaries, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of Charleston, South Carolina's vibrant entrepreneurial scene. I'm your host, Bill Ballott, founder of Veritas Exoscience, and each week we're spotlighting the boldest innovators from the Chucktown startup community. These are the visionaries pouring their heart and soul into the businesses that are transferring Charleston into a global hub of creativity and American ingenuity. Get ready for raw, real conversations with the trailblazers shaping our city's future. Let's dive in. I would like to welcome Chris Dugan. Chris is the founder and owner of Reforged Gaming Lounge in the North Charleston area. Reforged is a modern gaming and social lounge built around the idea that gaming should bring people together. Welcome, Chris. Great to see you.
Hey, everyone. Good to be here.
That's awesome. So I was reading in your bio. It's like this is sort of different than like any kind of gaming place I've ever been to or seen before, because you guys have like a cafe, a bar, obviously gaming consoles and everything. And you know, your real emphasis is face to face, where, you know, my impression of the gaming culture is, you know, people sitting at home kind of connecting across the internet. So tell me about this.
Yeah, so I mean, we saw similar things, right? As like we saw the changes of automation and tools that already existed, and say like playing World of Warcraft, and where when World of Warcraft first came out, if you wanted to raid, you had to know 39 other people. Right. You had to show up at the same time, and you all had crappy internet, but we were all dealing with the same problem and crappy servers. Yeah. But that's how you build a community, right? But you were digitally doing that because we were all around the world and the country, right, respectively, depending. And then they introduced Raid Finder, where you click a button and it finds 39 other people for you.
Oh, wow.
So you could just go get the shiny thing at the end, and basically made it so almost you can't lose. It's a simplified version of it, which is great in some respects. It gets more people into the content and experiencing it, because that was the big problem that they saw with the game. Nobody was experiencing the raids because they didn't know 39 other people. Right. And then they cut it to 25, and then they cut it to 10 as an option as well. And now they have this myriad thing called Flex. Nevertheless, as more automation got on, you knew the person that you were playing with less and less. And that became exacerbated to the point it was like, man, when we wanted to know who the best players locally were that you knew, you went to the arcade. Right. And then, you know, you had your friend group at home, but while we had the SNES and the NES and those kind of things, they weren't as powerful until we got to like the 32-bit systems and the 64-bit system. So your PlayStation, Nintendo 64 era, right? And then that's when the shift really happened, because online started to become a thing again. And so that in person, that community that you had built of, oh, that guy's really good at Pac-Man, that guy's really good at the new Tekken game that just came out, it's like brand new, you know, and this guy's really good at Double Dragon, all those things. Right. You know, that persona that you have when you're in like a third place, right, where it's different than at your job and whatever your title is there, and it's different at your home and whatever the pecking order is at your home. In that place, you were something else, and that was lost, right? And so we looked at all the technology changes and said, hey, there's a way to do this. This is difficult to do, but there is a way to do this. But we need to have these backgrounds, right? We need to have an IT person, which was me, right? We need to have a food service person, which was also me, ironically enough. And then we need to have someone that, you know, people that love gaming, which is me and the rest of the staff as well, right? Plus, you know, these ancillary skills that also help make the whole. But ultimately, we saw an opportunity to do this. We started in 2016 as a pop-up thing just to see if people would engage with it. And we were a pop-up arcade with breweries like Frothy Beard and Rusty Bull and quite a few of the other ones around here, right? Some of them are no longer here. Some of them are. As things often go. With a surge of something, there's generally a downfall of those things. Right. As we've seen with some of it. But nevertheless, it validated the ability for us to get people to actually, one, they would pay for this to some degree, and two, they wanted this. And so, you know, come 2020, we're going to rock this thing. COVID hits, completely shatters our plans, almost puts us out of business. And we're like, all right, is the world going to want this anymore? Because now, back to your point, everybody's back inside again. Resurge of people online, the highest numbers the industry's ever seen, right? Which is, of course, due to a global incident, right? Nothing more. it doesn't mean that there aren't more gamers tomorrow than there were yesterday. That's how prolific it is in the average society now. But the reality of it is it took us until almost 2025 to get the first brick and mortar open that was planned for 2020. And fortunately for us, in what is today? In 11 more days, we'll be celebrating our 1 year anniversary of being open in the location.
Nice.
So
Congratulations.
we have, for us, it's validating, and thank you, that so many people have come through and continue to come through and enjoy themselves. And really also to answer the question that we had after COVID, will people want this? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we knew they wanted it before. If anything, COVID put a microscope on it for a lot of people and said, hey, this can be taken away, like outside of my control. I could lose this inadvertently. And it's kind of reignited people's passion for doing things not in their home again. I love staying at my house. Everything's where I want it to be for a more or less kind of thing. I've got all the stuff that I need there, generally speaking, other than the relationships, right? They're not there.
Right.
And a phone call isn't quite the same as, hey man, let's go meet for a cigar or a beer or whatever, or coffee, whatever you like, right? And so, yeah, I think ultimately that's really what got us in, a couple of minutes there from inception to dealing with like kind of craziness, and all along the way still having a community there that was following us and saying, hey, we're going to show up when you do this thing. We're going to come out.
Right.
Like, we're going to do this. Whatever makes sense. Like, we're going to support this in every way that we can, online and offline, but specifically offline and in person. That's the biggest thing, is just,
that's cool.
Just like a networking thing or anything else. It's like, man, you can call into a Zoom call and be one of 100 faces on a Zoom call. That's a networking event. Or you can go meet 8 to 10 people or up to 100 people, depending on the size of the networking event. But you can have 10 conversations in that. And you know how many conversations you had on that Zoom call? Probably 0.
Yeah, none. Yeah.
Maybe 1 to 2. They'll put you in breakout rooms with another group, and that's fine. But again, they're simulating real life, right? I was like, no, yeah, we would have a group conversation potentially, or we would have one-to-one conversations. But we'd have the option for both in person, where, online, you do not have the options. You are a slave to the system in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Like the Zoom meeting runner says everyone's going to the breakout rooms. He picks where you go, presses the button, the system decides randomly, and that's who you're with. Yeah. That's it. You have no autonomy in that, right? And that's, I think, the key thing that we provide for people, is that they can come do something that they may not have at home, or even that they do, but they're missing a key component to it, and that is other people, right? Humans instinctively, by nature, seek out other people as a rule.
So let me ask you a tough question here then.
Okay.
So I'm a lone gamer. I play, with my Nintendo Switch here at the house, and, I'm a teenager, I'm a young adult, whatever. I show up to your place. How am I going to meet anybody?
Right. That's a great question. We get a similar version of that all the time when people say, hey, I've got everything that you have at home. You know, and the main thing is we need to strip away the hardware and the software for a minute. It's like, all right, when you strip those things away, what's left? It's like, okay, it's you by yourself, right? Yeah. Versus you in another room. Now, granted, you've gone through COVID, we've come out of it, and people, it has had a massive impact on their social skills, right?
Right.
But where do you rebuild them if not in a place where people understand you more so than anywhere else? At your job, they're not going to be as understanding. Their job is to make money for the company, right? By and large,
right.
In your home, it's to make sure that there's a roof over your head, there's food on the table, everyone's safe. Generally becomes the top priorities there, not necessarily so much, hey, how you doing? your mental is often put in a third, a distant third. Yeah. Right, over those first two things. And so when you go to a place like this that's designed around that, what I would say is just literally come in and grab a seat at the bar and just say hello, and start with our bartenders.
Oh, nice.
They are a wealth of knowledge. Just say, hey man, because they're gonna be like, hey dude, what you playing right now? And you're like, oh, I just got a new Nintendo Switch and I'm excited about the new Kirby Air Riders. Fantastic. We got a tournament coming up on day 1 when it comes out. Come meet the other players that are excited about it. Cool. They also play Sonic Racers and Mario Kart. And just that quickly, you have a warm intro to the group. You don't need to feel anxiety about approaching. We'll do it. Like, we're more than happy to do it, because we know that helps get the conversation going. And then, ironically enough, when you leave, that conversation often continues online. where we expect it to, because that's the most convenient and most logical place for it to continue. But you'll always have that home base to come back to when you want the true thing, right? The real thing, when you want
Right.
to see the person, not the technology. And I think that's the number one thing that people kind of often miss is that, oh, well, we do FaceTime all the time. I was like, yeah, but you see the technology. You
Right.
don't see the person,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And what about for the person that wants to, you know, wants to talk about the tech? It's like, hey, my family, my friends, they're not so much into it. I just want somebody to talk about, like, hey, I just saw from, this is me. I just saw from the White House, the console wars are over. And
Yeah.
evidently there's this thing where, Halo's on, PlayStation and Xbox now, and that's a big deal. I'm not that big of a Halo player, but I want to talk about this. Is your place where I can come and talk about that kind of stuff?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm ready to go right now. But and usually you'll get me or you'll get David, my co-founder, or one of the two bartenders that work for us on the team as well. And they're all going to have their opinion on those things because we all, a big part of our job is keeping up with what's happening in the gaming space. It's a lot of what our conversation is because it's expected from the community that we have some idea about those things and probably an opinion around them too,
Right.
because more often than not, when people ask you a question, they're looking for your opinion. They may rephrase it and state it as fact, but it is just an opinion.
Right.
It is not an objective truth all the time. If and I would say more often, rarely than ever. But even we have plenty of people, for example, that come through and be like, they see the 20 PCs there. And sometimes that's the most gaming PCs they've ever seen in a room in their entire lives.
Right.
And they're like, oh man, did you guys build all those? And I was like, well, funny story. We were going to, and then this happened. And then we have a 10-minute conversation about how we ended up finding our builder, CLX, that we had to go through because of supply chain issues, the logistics that we couldn't overcome for the size of the business that we were and the budget that we had.
Right.
We had to work within those parameters. And so it gives them insights into not only, hey, do we understand the technology? And we found someone else that did as well, but we also understand, we're giving you some insights into how the business operates and the investment that we have made to the community. Before we met a single person, right? We was like, it's literally a blind faith thing. It was like, we truly believe that in a city like Charleston, which by many other people when we were doing this told us this will not work here. The market is too small.
Yeah.
You need to go to Atlanta. You need to go to Charlotte minimum, those kind of places that were a larger markets where there's more people. You don't have enough people here.
Right.
And we took that as a challenge and said, okay, you know what? We disagree. We know the numbers and how prolific gaming is across every single person's lives. And while you're right, you probably could do higher numbers in Atlanta because there are more people there.
Sure.
You also have to charge way more and you have to spend way more in order to do
rent
that.
And everything else is just like astronomical there. Right.
Yeah. But the person that wants to know, the tech side of things, it's how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? You want to, I'm a 20-year IT veteran, right? So we can talk tech all you want, but if it's gaming tech, I started when my first console was Atari 2600.
Yeah.
So, I was very young then, but the reality of it is I've experienced basically every single console that's been a major release and some even minor release things, some one-off things through the course of time. But as the breadth of gaming has grown, there's just so many things. Even someone who's in a position like I am hasn't touched all of them, hasn't got to experience all of them. So it's cool when someone comes through and wants to talk those things and says, oh man, I've got this, and this is a modded, or this is this rare thing that I got because my dad was stationed overseas. This is only available there. Have you ever seen one? I was like, no, I haven't. May I? Kind of thing, right? So it gives us a unique opportunity to experience some things that we may not have while being open to having those conversations.
That's really cool. Yeah, I started with Atari, also played the original Pong. So yeah, I get that. And it's what I see like kind of going on in some of the gaming world from my small little window. It's like, I see games that are like so like purposely like old school, like pixelated, to all the way to the opposite end where it's like hyper reality. And there's a lot in between What kind of games do you guys have there? Do you have everything, or what's kind of like your major focus there?
Yeah, so no, we do not have everything. The reality of it is, if you hadn't inferred from the conversation earlier, if you made it this long, thank you so much, is that the breadth of gaming is we're talking 5 million people engage with it almost on the daily. I'm sorry, I said million. I meant billion with a B.
Wow.
Over half the planet. I misspoke. My apologies. Yes, it is 5 billion and climbing almost on a daily basis. Now that's across PC, console, and mobile as well. And mobile's a huge proponent of that in certain areas of the world, right? Especially where the only technology they may have is a mobile device. Right. They don't have the luxury of having a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox available to them. Or if there's a PC, it's certainly not used for gaming because, it's rare that there's one available and it's used for infrastructure, generally speaking.
Right.
But I think sorry, I lost my place for a second there.
So what games would you say you do have there?
Yeah, thank you so much. So the games that we do offer versus what we don't offer, absolutely. So our focus is generally on community-based play, so more than one player, and not single-player experiences. Not that we don't love single-player experiences. Legend of Zelda is still my favorite franchise of all time, and almost all those games are single-player. Not all of them. There are a few one-offs they finally made that are actually multiplayer, but we try to have a good coverage of where people and meet them where they're at. So the overwhelming majority of people that play FIFA and Madden play it on the PlayStation 5.
Oh, cool. Right?
Yeah. More so than anything else. So guess what? PlayStation 5, that's where you're going to find the newest Madden, the newest FIFA, the newest NBA 2K, those kind of things, right? On Nintendo Switch, they have access to Nintendo exclusive IPs, right? So you're talking Mario, you're talking Zelda, Kirby, Metroid, all those things, right? Donkey Kong.
Yep.
Unique exclusives that are there. So it's very Mario, it's very platform, and that almost walled garden like Apple has ecosystem centric. It was like, hey, you can only play these games here. So we lean into that, right? Because that's how Nintendo operates their thing. With Microsoft and the cloud gaming, we have a cloud gaming subscription. So whatever Microsoft makes available in their Ultimate Pass for Xbox every month, that's what you have access to, that entire library, right? And that really puts the onus on Microsoft to keep that library robust and interesting for players across the board. Versus, which by the way, they just increased the price another $10 last month per month. So that's a massive deal.
Yeah.
That's going to affect everyone. And then on the PCs is really kind of where everything meets, right? Is that, you get the esports happens on PC, full stop. With the exception of fighting games, which are technically an esport, but they're not in the same way. They're viewed differently by the gaming world, which is interesting to me. And I don't exactly have the best way to articulate that other than that they're just viewed in a different category. They're the one console bastion in esports, really, because if you play Fortnite, you play Call of Duty, you play all these things, it's almost always on PC now.
Right.
Just because of the modularity and the capability of it. It's like you can run multiple games on it. You can run Rocket League on it, and you can do a controller, or you can do mouse and keyboard. You have the autonomy and the choice of how you want to have your input sent to the game versus on a console, traditionally speaking, with the exception of Xbox, there is no keyboard and mouse option. Right. Nintendo Switch has an interesting thing with the new controllers. You can turn it on the side and it acts like a mouse, and you can press the shoulder button to make it like a click input. But that's a relatively brand new feature that is not in most games.
Right.
It's one of those, that's neat, I'm going to try that kind of thing. I'm not going to go as far as say that it's a gimmick because it hasn't been out long enough to see.
Right.
People thought that the motion controls thing on the Wii was a gimmick, and then it sold 500 million units.
It was pretty cool.
If that's a gimmick, man, it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So
if you want a list of the PC games, the final thing I'll say, you can always go to our website under services and click on the PC games option, and then we'll show you up to date. It pulls from our server every day and says, hey, not only these are the 60 to 70 games that are currently installed, these are the top 10 games being played in the lounge right now.
Nice.
And it updates daily. So you got to get an idea of where our players in this location really are at versus if we have multiple locations in the future, it'll show you those and like, hey, which location do you want to see?
That's cool.
And then it's going to see because, regionally, when you go around the country, it's different. of what people primarily play, whether it's a MOBA or it's a first-person shooter or it's a fighting game. Everybody has their preferences, and it tends to be influenced by regional differences and cultural differences as well,
Right.
which is very fascinating.
So, question: what age range of clients do you have? Are you guys open for, like, 7, 8, 9 year olds all the way up to us old people, over 50? What is your kind of age range that you provide services to, and do you do anything? A secondary question is, like you mentioned, the esports. Do you do anything with, like, the local schools or little clubs that are forming, like, esports teams?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna answer the second one first, just because it's something I'm currently working on. So we are working on a pilot program for the Charleston County School District that is called
Nice.
Gaming for Academic Excellence. And essentially what it is that, and this is something that I personally experienced when I was a kid, so I'm very passionate about this one, is that there was a place in Goose Creek that was called Track Stars, which was kind of like a local version of Showbiz Pizza, which later
Oh,
became
cool.
Chicken
Yeah.
Fingers, right? So, but they had this cool arcade there on top of the other things that they had, which was the pizza and the sodas and stuff, and it was very popular. And it was close to the Navy base, which had a huge installation out there at the time. So
Right.
a lot of families there, a lot of birthday parties. You get the idea, right? So they had a program that if you brought in your report card, for every A that you got, they would give you 10 tokens. For
Oh,
every B
nice.
that you got, they'd give you 5 tokens. For every C that you got, they'd give you 3 tokens. You got anything below a C, you got nothing. And so basically, they paid children that wanted to excel in school. They gave them a true incentive, like an actual payment.
Yeah.
But we got paid in tokens, right? It's like,
Right.
hey, here's my report card from the school, and they would say okie dokie, and they would mark it down, and they would write your name down on just on a list and say, hey, you've redeemed it, and here's your tokens. And I mean, I would get straight A's because of it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would go
That
in there
would
every
that would
report card
incentivize a
period,
lot of people.
and I would have 100 tokens, which might as well have been a million to me at the
Right.
time, right? Because back in the day, most games were still 1 token, and they were starting to transition to 2 tokens.
Right.
The 4 token thing was unheard of, and,
Right.
and never thought that would happen, right? So we have a similar program that we're working with Charleston County School District on piloting with
Oh, nice.
Stall High School, which is where I graduated from,
Yeah.
and we have a couple other programs that we're hoping to work on with them. One's a summer camp, and one is after school programming as well. And we would like to make it available to CCSD as a whole, but there's just a lot of logistics behind that. So we're starting with
Absolutely.
a pilot on that. And then the first part of the question was, remind me one more time.
The first part of the question. Oh, we were talking about esports, and what is
Oh, the
related to
age
the esports
range.
is,
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
your age range of people that can
Yes.
come to your place, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as who we serve and our target demographic, so our target demographic, obviously, we're built from the bar out. If you come in there and you look in the place, the first thing you see at the back of the room is the bar. It's
Right.
very obvious, right?
Right.
That being said, we know that there's been many generations of gamer now that have grown up that also have families, and so we wanted it to be a place where they can engage in that uniqueness that is something that previous generations really didn't have as a family unifying thing. Often it wasn't a unifier, it was a separator, right?
Right.
It created a divide between the parents and the children. Now it's a unifier. And so we wanted to support and embrace that. So the deal is very simple. If you're under 18, you have a parent or guardian with you.
Right.
Now, eventually, we get to the point where you have a relationship with said parent or guardian, and we know that the children that are there, are well behaved. They know us. They feel comfortable there. The parents feel comfortable there to run an errand up the road on Dorchester, sit through traffic, like you said, those kind of things. And they feel like their kids are going to be safe and entertained and in good hands. Same thing. But we have all the logistics in place, urgent emergency contacts, those kind of things.
Oh, okay. That's great.
It's that, but that takes a relationship, right? So if someone shows up and dumps a bunch of 16-year-olds at our front door, no,
Yeah. No.
that's not happening. So when you're getting out your phones, you're calling your ride back, and then we're having a different conversation, because that's not what we do. We are not a daycare center, and we have no personnel that are trained for, the teenagers is one thing, but like 9-year-olds is another, you
Right.
know. Now, that being said, the majority of our birthday parties, of which we are continuing to book way more than we were at the beginning of the year, so we're very thankful for that as well. It tends to skew a little bit younger. We're looking at 7-year-old up to 17,
Oh, cool.
and the occasional adult birthday party, which are becoming more popular for us, just because they want to do something. They want to get their friends together, and they want a choice of gaming. So we talked a lot about the video games. What we didn't talk about was the flex room. For the flex room, we deploy on a Friday night. It's Rock Band, right? It's our version of karaoke. You come
Oh,
out,
cool.
you can do karaoke, but if you don't sing, which a lot of people will not, if you ever been to karaoke with a group of friends,
Yeah.
I want you to think to yourself, how many people in that group sang? And
Yeah.
it's probably two.
Yeah.
No matter
Maybe two.
how big the group is, it's probably two,
Right.
which is a problem, right? And we wanted to solve that. I was like, okay, we've got the drum kit, we've got the two guitars here. We can serve four people at once instead of two max, which some karaoke things have two microphones, some only have one, right? So in our case, we have one microphone, two guitars, and the drums. So we can serve up to four people at once, and people feel a lot better about grabbing what looks like the equivalent of if Fisher Price made a guitar and playing a game with their friends publicly, because it's a group thing now versus singing to a room full of strangers, right?
Right.
Which is
Right.
what karaoke is in
Right.
essence. And then we also have, if the flex room is not in use for something like that, that it becomes kind of more the tabletop centric thing. Whether you're doing D&D or you want to play Monopoly Go or any apples to apples, Cards Against Humanity, any of those things, we found for the more adult oriented birthday parties, they like to jump between things. Oh, let me check out this thing on PC. I heard about this, and then they're like, "Oh man, that's hard." All right, maybe I'll go over to the Legacy Ledge and I'll play some Super Nintendo for a while. I remember that, and then
Yeah.
muscle memory kicks in, kind of thing, right? And then they're like, "Oh, do they have Risk over there?" And it was just like, "You got an hour and a half. You go play a game of Risk," and they're like, "Oh, they'll get it out and look at it and stuff." But there's a lot of things. We've been very fortunate to have the community donate a lot of games that they're not using anymore, so our library is constantly growing in that
Oh,
way.
cool.
And we're always accepting donations on really any kind of game that if it no longer has life for you. I mean, we purchased tons of them, but of course, if you want to think of this as a secondhand thing that you're just trying to unload that's still usable, that is something that the community has been really great about, and we just continue to give it. People ask about the name a lot, Reforged, right? Why? Why
Right.
that? Why that
Right.
word out of everything? This is kind of it, as though we got tired of seeing perfectly good things being thrown in the bin and creating problems elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a PC that can be upgraded or used for as a server or something else, or it's a board game that you're just tired of playing and it's just sitting in your closet and it's still perfectly fine and people would play it. They would use it,
Right.
but it's not in the right place. So we kind of became that centralization for that and putting it in the right place and allowing people to come there. And we slightly monetize it through things, right?
Right.
To
Right.
it essentially allows us to validate storing all these things here, because we got to validate every square foot and what it generates
Absolutely.
for the business as the business goes. But we're super grateful for those things. And a lot of times we'll get to the point where we have to cycle them out, and then we'll give them back out to the community and say, "Hey, would you like to take this home?
Oh,
This
that's
was
cool.
given to us. We would like to keep this going and keep the reforging going with this thing. Is that this is still a useful thing that can get some and bring joy to somebody. Maybe
Yeah.
just not. It's time with us is now spent too, but it can continue on.
Yeah. That's great. It sounds like everything is about bringing people together, but also bringing together things, including games that aren't being used, and making them utilized and increasing people's enjoyment. That's a great thing, Chris. I mean, that you guys sound like you're rocking it there. And but you've had a tough, sounds like you've had a tough road to kind of get here. So what I have to ask you is, like, okay, what through this tough road you've been on, like, what advice would you have for other entrepreneurs out there thinking, like, whoa, I don't know if I want to go through what Chris went through?
Right. You know what? And if that's your gut instinct, don't. You probably don't want to go through it, man. Like, it is a lonely, difficult road. I'm fortunate that I have a co-founder.
Oh,
Some
good.
people don't have that, man.
Right.
And so at least I've got someone else to lean on a little bit when it's too much for me that day. But there are those that are solo entrepreneurs out there that sometimes don't find a co-founder until much later, if ever. And I can't imagine having to deal with that. Now, that being said, I don't want to diminish anyone's dreams or anything here. If you can't stop thinking about this and it keeps you awake at night wondering what if, you probably should do it to some degree, right?
Right.
And
Right.
start. It
Right.
doesn't mean, go borrow $2 million from I don't know who that has $2 million that they're going to give you, but let's just say that they do, for example. If you think you figured out that your thing is going to cost $2 million, it's probably going to cost $4 million.
Right.
Right. So the first bit of advice I would say, whatever you think that your budget is for this, double it, and then add 20% onto that number.
Wow.
And then you're probably in the ballpark of what this is actually going to cost to even figure out if it's going to work.
Right.
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 Truly. And to be quite frank, I still never really know if what we're doing is working. I see the numbers in and out kind of thing, but there's always this ebb and flow, and it's still kind of the Wild West now. But my one marker that you should also look for is that, do people continuously show up to your thing and engage with it? Where you're present at, right? Whether that be online or in person. But in person is paramount if that's what your business is, right? Obviously, if you're an online only business, well, that's the only metric that you have, right? But if you are fortunate enough to have something in person where people can come engage with physically, that's, I would say, the more worthy part, because it requires them to do something, to mobilize, right? How can you mobilize your audience? And that's really the number one metric that you need to love getting to know and working with, is mobilization of your followers, your fans, your whatever online calls them kind of thing, right? I was like, it's great. You can have 10 million or whatever, but if you can mobilize 10 out of 10 million, man, I don't know how your in-person thing's going to work.
Yeah, you can really do well then.
Yeah. But, I would say very deeply consider what you value, as well as how your time is spent.
Yeah.
If you endeavor on a journey like this, you are going to be the poorest that you've ever been, unless you're independently wealthy already, and then that doesn't matter to you. But if you're not, that you will make the least amount of money that you've ever made in your life for the next 1 to 5 years,
right?
And sometimes longer, depending. And you really need to understand what the long-term vision is and truly believe it, because that's what's going to get you through all the problems that you come up with hey, delays here and delays there, and all of it costs money that you don't have, right? And having really, really strong relations with people that truly not only believe in you, but what you're doing and where you're pouring in your time, because this will destroy a marriage. This will destroy your relationship with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you have, with your friends a lot of times too, because you're like, oh man, come to my birthday party. It's this thing. I've got service tonight, man. I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then you offer them, hey, you can come to us. It might conflict with what they're doing. They've got this whole other plan, and it's like, sometimes they take it personally. It's like, it's never personal, but understand, for me, using me as an example, and I've been very fortunate that none of my friends, they've been super understanding of this and know that I've been working on this for over 10 years.
Right.
So they get it, but not everyone is fortunate enough. My friend group, the lowest number of years I've been friends with someone in that friend group is like 18 years.
Oh, yeah.
Up to, I'm 42, so 36 years I've been friends with 2 of them.
Wow.
So I met them when I was 6 years old.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and not everyone has that.
They get you.
Yeah. They understand. They've seen the years of me slowly and surely positioning myself to give this like a true, hey, this is my full-time job.
Right.
That's the final thing here, is that, man, if you're going to go all in on this, you need to understand what going all in on this is. Like, all the, your lifestyle will change.
Yes.
It is going to change. And you might see it, that might be for the better, it might be for the worse. I don't know what the answer to that is, but your lifestyle unequivocally will alter for quite some time. And I hope it's for the better if you do decide to go down this journey like so many others do. And if I've said all this and you still say, yeah, that's me, super duper, because we need more people doing this, because the only way to fundamentally alter the way that the world is going is through business.
Right.
Adam Smith knew it back in the 1700s, and it hasn't changed. Everyone's tried to alter from that, but it's the same. It's like, businesses doing right by themselves and their community is what makes the world better.
Yeah.
Not just taking. You got to give something.
Yeah.
Right.
And creating something new is not an easy process. It's filled with a lot of difficulties, and you got to be ready for the journey. So yeah,
it's a real mess sometimes.
It's a real mess. Well, Chris, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. I hope we do this again sometime. I'm
Absolutely.
just down the road from you. You're on Dorchester Road, correct?
Yes, sir. 8484 Dorchester Road, Suite B. Right
Sweet.
by the Crab Shack and the Cosmetology Institute. We're right in there. So
Nice,
stop on
nice.
by if you can. And, when it makes sense for you guys, and we'll have, some more conversation and maybe play some games.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to come do that. Well, we had a Chucktown startup event there. I didn't get to play some games at that time, but I think I want to come back and give it a shot. I haven't played outside of my house in a long time, since back in the days when there were arcades and stuff. So that might be really fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, every other month we're doing the Chucktown Startups thing again on I think it's going to be the second Tuesday of most
Oh,
months.
nice.
We'll have to confirm that with Toby, but yeah, we're the North Charleston stop, and then the downtown one is so every other month they're either downtown or in North Charleston. So
Very
they want to
nice.
try to appeal to as much of the Tri-County area as possible and make it accessible for people to get to without having to drive an hour there and
Right.
back, which I've lived that. Anything that's in Mount Pleasant, where I'm coming from, because I live up the road from you and the lounge as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an hour to get to.
Oh, yeah.
Mount Pleasant.
To go to Mount Pleasant is probably an hour these days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I get it, I do, but we're trying to make it as accessible as possible, and I appreciate the conversation, man. It was really
All
fun.
right. Thanks so much.
All right, cheers, bud.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Lowcountry Revolutionaries. Thanks for joining us as we celebrate the fearless entrepreneurs making wave in Charleston's Chucktown Startups community. I'm Bill Ballott, and it's been an honor to share these inspiring stories with you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a spark of Lowcountry innovation. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.